Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is my very first video here, so I'm really excited to start this journey with you all. This is Madrid Era, a channel dedicated to Real Madrid, the history, the drama, and the defining moments that shaped the biggest club in football. And to kick things off, I wanted to do something a bit different, something every Madrid fan has thought about at some point. Because today, we're not talking about what did happen, we're talking about what could have happened. The biggest what-ifs in Real Madrid's recent history. 5 moments, 5 turning points, and potentially 5 completely different versions of modern Real Madrid history. So if you're a Madrid fan who enjoys deep dives, alternate timelines, and debating football's biggest sliding doors moments, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Number 1. What if Sergio Ramos scored that penalty against Bayern Munich? We go back to the 2011-12 season. A season that, in many ways, represents one of the greatest versions of Real Madrid ever seen. Under Jose Mourinho, this was the team at its absolute peak. Lightning-fast counterattacks, ruthless efficiency, and a dominance in La Liga that broke records. 100 points, 121 goals, and a team that finally managed to end Barcelona's domestic superiority. But the real obsession that season wasn't La Liga. It was La Décima. Real Madrid's 10th Champions League title, a trophy that had been missing since 2002 when Zidane scored that legendary volley in Glasgow. 10 years of frustration, expectation, and pressure, and Mourinho's mission was simple: bring it back. And so Madrid reached the Champions League semifinals against Bayern Munich under Jupp Heynckes in what was already shaping up to be an all-time classic tie. The first leg in Munich ended in heartbreak, a 2-1 defeat with a last-minute winner from Mario Gomez leaving Madrid with everything to do with the Bernabeu. But in between those 2 legs, Real Madrid did something massive. They went to the Camp Nou and essentially secured La Liga with a huge statement win. Confidence was high, belief was back. Then came the return leg in Madrid, and it started perfectly. 2 quick goals. Cristiano Ronaldo, pure electricity. 2-0 Real Madrid, and suddenly the tie was flipped. The Bernabeu was shaking, and La Décima felt within reach again. But Bayern didn't collapse. Arjen Robben struck from the penalty spot, and the game slowly drifted into tension. Then, extra time, and finally, penalties. Mourinho was on his knees, literally, watching every kick like it was torture. Cristiano Ronaldo and Kaká both missed. Hope disappeared. Then came a twist. Kroos and Lahm also missed for Bayern. The tie opened again, 1 moment away from glory. And then came the moment that still defines that night. Sergio Ramos stepped up, and he blasted his penalty high over the bar. That one moment didn't just miss a final, it felt like it broke something in that era of Real Madrid. Bayern went on to win it, with Bastian Schweinsteiger scoring the decisive penalty. The dream was over. Mourinho later admitted it was the only time he cried after a match, driving home completely destroyed, saying even Cristiano was dead emotionally that night. But now imagine the alternative. What if Ramos scores that penalty? Real Madrid go through. A Champions League final awaits against Chelsea, a team they would have gone into as clear favorites. Mourinho could have won his 3rd Champions League with a 3rd different club, cementing one of the greatest managerial legacies in football history. And maybe, just maybe, everything changes. Maybe he stays longer in Madrid. Maybe the breakup doesn't happen the way it did. Maybe Carlo Ancelotti never arrives in 2013 to build the foundation for La Décima that finally came in 2014. Because one penalty didn't just decide a match. It may have decided an entire era of Real Madrid history. Number 2. What if Sergio Ramos never scored that equalizer against Atletico Madrid in the 2014 Champions League final? Now let's move on to what is probably the most famous moment in Real Madrid's modern history, and perhaps the single most important goal the club has scored in the 21st century. To understand the magnitude of that question, you first need to understand what Real Madrid was going through at the time. Ever since winning the club's 9th European Cup in 2002 thanks to Zidane's legendary volley against Bayer Leverkusen, Real Madrid had been desperately chasing La Décima. Season after season, the expectation grew heavier, and every failure made the pressure even greater. There were painful eliminations against Juventus, Arsenal, Liverpool, Roma, and Lyon, followed by heartbreaking defeats in the semifinals against Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Borussia Dortmund. For 12 years, the club that defined the European Cup simply could not win it. At the same time, something unusual was happening, much closer to home. For more than a decade, Atletico Madrid had lived entirely in Real Madrid's shadow. Between 1999 and 2013, Atletico failed to win a single Madrid derby, a streak so long that many fans genuinely believed they had developed a psychological barrier whenever they faced their city rivals. Real Madrid dominated the fixture year after year, turning what should have been one of football's fiercest rivalries into an almost predictable outcome. That dynamic finally changed in May 2013 when Atletico defeated Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final at the Santiago Bernabeu. It was a humiliating night for Madrid and a symbolic victory for Diego Simeone's project, proving that Atletico were no longer the underdogs who simply accepted defeat whenever Real stood in their way. 1 year later, the stakes were even higher. Carlo Ancelotti had already enjoyed a promising first season in charge, guiding Real Madrid to the Copa del Rey trophy and, importantly, eliminating Atletico Madrid on the way to the final. After the disappointment of losing the previous year's Copa del Rey final to their city rivals, Madrid had regained some control of the rivalry, defeating Atletico over 2 legs before Gareth Bale's unforgettable winner against Barcelona secured the trophy in Valencia. Yet despite that success, the season was still in danger of ending with a sense of frustration. Real Madrid had been in a strong position in the La Liga title race, but costly dropped points late in the campaign against Valencia and Valladolid allowed Atletico to seize the initiative. On the final match day, Simeone's side secured the league title at Camp Nou, while Real Madrid were left wondering what might have been. For a club of Madrid's ambitions, finishing the season with only the Copa del Rey would have felt disappointing after spending much of the year competing for all 3 major trophies. That context made the Champions League final in Lisbon feel even bigger. It was not only an opportunity to finally win La Décima after 12 years of waiting, but also a chance to define the season and re-establish Real Madrid as the undisputed kings of European football. At the same time, it was an opportunity to stop Atletico Madrid from completing what would have been the greatest campaign in their history. Having already won La Liga, Atletico stood just 90 minutes away from becoming champions of Europe as well, a scenario that would have dramatically altered the balance of power in Madrid and produced one of the most remarkable underdog stories football has ever seen. The match itself could hardly have gone worse. Diego Godin's goal gave Atletico the lead, and as the minutes passed, Real Madrid became increasingly desperate. Atletico defended with incredible discipline, protecting their advantage exactly as a Simeone team would. By the time the match entered stoppage time, it genuinely felt as though the dream was slipping away once again. Another year without La Décima, another European disappointment, another opportunity gone. Then came the moment every Madridista knows by heart. In the 93rd minute, Luka Modrić delivered a corner into the box. Sergio Ramos rose above the Atletico defense, and his header flew past Thibaut Courtois. Within seconds, the entire history of the club seemed to change direction. What had looked like a lost final suddenly became a new beginning. Because once that goal was scored, Atletico were never the same. They had spent almost the entire match defending their lead both physically and emotionally, and the equalizer completely shattered them. In extra time, Real Madrid took control, scoring 3 more goals through Gareth Bale, Marcelo, and Cristiano Ronaldo to secure a 4-1 victory and finally lift La Décima. But what if that header never goes in? What if the cross is slightly deeper? What if Courtois reaches it? What if Ramos mistimes his jump by a fraction of a second? In that scenario, Atletico Madrid become European champions for the first time in their history, completing an extraordinary League and Champions League double. Diego Simeone's side would instantly be remembered as one of the greatest underdog stories football has ever seen, while Real Madrid would be forced to continue carrying the burden of La Décima for at least another season. The psychological impact of such a defeat is almost impossible to measure. After all, this wasn't Bayern Munich, Manchester United, or Milan standing on the other side. This was Atletico Madrid, the rival that Real had spent most of the previous decade dominating. Watching Atletico lift their first European Cup before Real Madrid could lift their 10th would have created one of the most painful chapters in the club's modern history and completely transformed how that era is remembered. More importantly, it raises a fascinating question about everything that followed. Once Real Madrid finally won La Décima, something seemed to change within the club. The pressure that had accumulated for over a decade disappeared almost overnight. The mental barrier was broken. The obsession was over. Real Madrid stopped chasing history and started creating it. Over the next 5 seasons, they would win 4 Champions League titles, including Zidane's unprecedented 3 consecutive triumphs between 2016 and 2018. That team became synonymous with the competition itself, establishing a level of European dominance that modern football had never seen before. Would all of that still have happened if Ramos never scored in Lisbon?
When people remember Ramos's header, they often describe it as the goal that saved the final. In reality, it may have been something much bigger than that. It was the goal that delivered La Décima, the goal that ended one of the greatest obsessions in football history, and perhaps the goal that laid the foundation for the most dominant Champions League dynasty the sport has ever seen. Without that header, Real Madrid's story is different. With it, a dynasty was born.
Number 3. What if Luka Modrić wasn't injured in 2014-15 season? This is one of the most underrated what-ifs in Real Madrid's recent history. What if Luka Modrić never got injured in the spring of 2015? Unlike some of the other moments on this list, there is no dramatic goal, controversial refereeing decision, or missed penalty to point to. Instead, this what-if revolves around something much less spectacular, but perhaps just as important: the absence of one player who held the entire team together. By the 2014-15 season, Real Madrid were no longer chasing La Décima. They had already conquered Europe in Lisbon and entered the new campaign as the best team in the world. Carlo Ancelotti's side looked stronger than ever, blending the attacking brilliance of Cristiano Ronaldo, Gareth Bale, Karim Benzema, and James Rodriguez with the experience of Sergio Ramos, Toni Kroos, and Luka Modrić. And for much of the season, they were simply unstoppable. Following a disappointing start that included a defeat to Atletico Madrid at the Bernabeu, Real Madrid went on an incredible run of victories, winning 22 consecutive matches in all competitions. It remains one of the greatest winning streaks in the club's history, and during that period, Madrid looked capable of dominating Europe for years to come. They won the UEFA Super Cup, claimed the Club World Cup, sat at the top of La Liga, and entered 2015 as overwhelming favorites to retain the Champions League. At the heart of everything was Luka Modrić. He was never the player who scored the most goals or generated the most headlines, but he was the player who made the entire machine function. His ability to escape pressure, dictate the tempo of matches, and connect defense with attack gave Real Madrid a level of control that few teams in football could match. When Modrić played, Madrid looked balanced. They looked calm. They looked complete. Then came the injuries. In November 2014, Modrić suffered a thigh injury while on international duty with Croatia, forcing him to miss several months. Although Real Madrid initially coped well, the effects of his absence became increasingly visible as the season progressed. When he eventually returned, another injury in April ruled him out once again during the most important period of the campaign. And suddenly, the unstoppable machine began to break down. The timing could hardly have been worse. The title race with Barcelona was reaching its decisive stage, and the Champions League knockout rounds were approaching. While Madrid still possessed immense individual quality, they no longer controlled games in the same way. The midfield lost balance, the attack became increasingly dependent on moments of individual brilliance, and the physical exhaustion that had been building throughout the season became more obvious with every passing week.
Meanwhile, Barcelona were getting stronger. Luis Enrique's side, led by Lionel Messi, Neymar, and Luis Suarez, hit top form in the second half of the season and gradually overtook Madrid in La Liga. The defining moment came in March when Barcelona defeated Real Madrid 2-1 at Camp Nou, opening up a crucial advantage in the title race. By the end of the season, Barcelona would complete a historic treble, while Real Madrid finished without a single major trophy. The Champions League campaign ended in similarly frustrating fashion. Real Madrid reached the semi-finals, where they faced Juventus. Despite entering the tie as favorites, Madrid were eliminated 3-2 on aggregate. In the second leg at the Bernabeu, they dominated possession, but struggled to create enough clear-cut chances, eventually drawing 1-1 and crashing out of the competition. What makes that elimination even more painful in hindsight is what awaited on the other side. Barcelona had already defeated Bayern Munich in the other semifinal, meaning that had Real Madrid overcome Juventus, football would have witnessed something it has never seen before: an El Clasico Champions League final. Despite decades of rivalry,
countless league title races, domestic cup finals, and unforgettable European clashes, Real Madrid and Barcelona have never met in a Champions League final. The biggest rivalry in club football has somehow never been played on the biggest stage in club football.
In many ways, 2015 was the closest we have ever come. The reigning European champions against a Barcelona side led by Messi, Neymar, and Suarez. Cristiano Ronaldo against Lionel Messi with the Champions League trophy on the line. The two dominant Spanish teams of the era meeting in a winner-takes-all match that would instantly become one of the biggest games in football history. And that is where this what-if becomes truly fascinating. Because it is not difficult to imagine an alternative timeline in which Modrić remains healthy. Real Madrid were already leading La Liga for much of the season and had established themselves as one of Europe's strongest sides before the injuries began to pile up. A fully fit Modrić would not have guaranteed success, of course, but he could have provided exactly the stability and control that the team lacked during the decisive months.
Perhaps Madrid hold on in the title race and prevent Barcelona from winning La Liga. Perhaps they find a way past Juventus and reach that historic Champions League final against their greatest rivals. And perhaps in a one-off match between two extraordinary teams, Real Madrid deny Barcelona the treble and become the first club in the Champions League era to successfully defend the trophy. The long-term implications are even more intriguing. When people discuss Real Madrid's historic run of Champions League success, they usually focus on the 4 titles won in 5 seasons between 2014 and 2018. Yet hidden within that story is the fact that the club came remarkably close to achieving something even greater.
Had Real Madrid won the Champions League in 2015, they would have become back-to-back European champions under Ancelotti before Zidane's arrival. Combined with the 3 consecutive titles won between 2016 and 2018, that would have meant 5 Champions League triumphs in a row. 5! A feat not seen since the legendary Real Madrid side of Alfredo Di Stefano dominated European football in the 1950s. Think about that for a moment. The greatest dynasty of the modern era could have become an even greater dynasty. Instead of 4 Champions League titles in 5 years, we might be talking about 5 consecutive European Cups, matching one of the most iconic achievements in football history and creating a run of dominance that may never be repeated.
Of course, football is rarely decided by a single injury. Barcelona were an extraordinary team, Juventus were a difficult opponent, and many other factors contributed to Madrid's trophyless season. But when Madrid fans look back at 2015, one question continues to linger. What if Luka Modrić had stayed fit? Because sometimes the biggest what-ifs are not about the moments everyone remembers. Sometimes they are about the player whose absence changed everything. Number 4. What if Ronaldo didn't leave? July 2018. For the first time in nearly a decade, the unthinkable became reality. Cristiano Ronaldo was no longer a Real Madrid player. Just a few weeks earlier, Madrid had lifted their 3rd consecutive Champions League trophy in Kiev, completing one of the greatest periods of dominance football had ever seen. 4 Champions League titles in 5 seasons, 3 in a row, a squad filled with legends. And at the center of it all stood Cristiano Ronaldo, the player who would become the face of an entire era. Which is why his departure felt so surreal. When Ronaldo arrived in 2009, Real Madrid were still searching for a way back to the top of European football. The club had spent years suffering painful Champions League exits while watching Barcelona dominate under Pep Guardiola. But over time, Ronaldo didn't just restore Madrid's European identity, he redefined it completely. Season after season, he broke records, delivered in the biggest moments, and turned the Champions League into his personal stage. By the time he left for Juventus in the summer of 2018, he had scored 450 goals in 438 appearances, becoming Real Madrid's all-time top scorer and the defining player of the most successful European era in modern football.
But his departure wasn't just about losing a goal scorer. It marked the end of the original Real Madrid dynasty. And it happened at exactly the same time as another shock. Just days earlier, Zinedine Zidane had also stepped down as manager, meaning the 2 most important figures of that golden era left the club within the same summer. From the outside, it looked like the end of something special. And in many ways, it was.
The following season, Real Madrid struggled badly. Without Ronaldo's goals and Zidane's structure, the team cycled through managers, lost stability, and suffered one of their most disappointing modern campaigns. In the Champions League, the three-time defending champions were eliminated by Ajax in the round of 16, a result that symbolically closed the chapter on the team that had ruled Europe. At the same time, Barcelona continued to dominate domestically, winning La Liga comfortably and reinforcing the sense that Madrid had fallen behind. And that is where the question begins. What if Cristiano Ronaldo never left in 2018?
Because on paper, there was a strong argument that Madrid still had more to give. Ronaldo was 33, but he had just finished another extraordinary season, scoring 44 goals in all competitions and once again delivering in the Champions League knockout stages. Even at that age, he was still one of the most decisive players in world football. If he stays, maybe the transition is smoother. Maybe Madrid avoid the chaos of 2018-19. Maybe they remain competitive enough to challenge for another Champions League during those immediate years.
There was also the individual dimension. At the time of his departure, Ronaldo and Lionel Messi were level on 5 Ballon d'Or awards each, still defining one of the greatest rivalries in football history. But once Ronaldo left Madrid, the dynamic of that rivalry changed. Messi remained at Barcelona, still competing at the very top level of European football, while Ronaldo moved to Juventus, where he continued to score goals, but no longer had the same Champions League platform. And interestingly, despite his consistency in Italy and later England, Ronaldo never reached another Champions League semi-final after leaving Real Madrid. The competition he had dominated for nearly a decade suddenly became much harder to control from outside Spain.
So perhaps staying in Madrid would have kept him in the Ballon d'Or conversation for longer. Perhaps it would have meant another deep Champions League run. Perhaps even another European title. But that is only one side of the story. Because while Ronaldo's departure felt like the end of a dynasty, it may also have been what allowed the next one to be born. Without him, Real Madrid were forced to evolve. The team could no longer rely on one player to decide every big European night. And slowly, almost reluctantly at first, a rebuild began. Young players like Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Federico Valverde, and later Jude Bellingham were gradually given more responsibility, and the squad shifted away from being built around a single superstar toward a more balanced system.
That transition was not immediate, and it was certainly not painless, but it eventually produced a new generation capable of competing at the highest level again. Which leads to the biggest question of all. If Ronaldo had stayed, would that rebuild have ever happened? Would Vinicius have developed into the player he is today if Ronaldo remained the undisputed focal point of the attack? Would Real Madrid have evolved tactically into the team that went on to win the Champions League in 2022 and 2024? Would the club have been ready to start a new European cycle, or would they have remained dependent on extending the old one? There is no clear answer.
Because in one version of history, keeping Cristiano Ronaldo gives Real Madrid a few more years at the very top, maybe even another Champions League or another Ballon d'Or for their greatest ever scorer. But in another version, his presence slows down the rebuild just enough to delay or even prevent the emergence of the next great Madrid side. And that is what makes this what if so fascinating. Because Cristiano Ronaldo leaving Real Madrid might not just have been the end of a dynasty, it may also have been the reason a new one eventually began.
Number 5. What if Mbappé didn't come to Real Madrid? By the summer of 2024, Real Madrid felt like they were entering a new phase of dominance. Carlo Ancelotti's second era had already delivered another Champions League title in 2022, followed by a deep run in 2023, where Madrid once again reached the semifinals, and then another European triumph in 2024. The team had evolved into something incredibly efficient and balanced, built around a core of Vinicius Jr., Jude Bellingham, Rodrigo, Valverde, and an experienced defensive structure led by Courtois and Militao. It wasn't the Ronaldo era anymore, and it wasn't even the transition period after 2018. It felt like a fully new Madrid identity, stable, cohesive, and once again dominant in Europe.
And then, everything changed. Kylian Mbappé finally arrived at Real Madrid. For years, it had been the transfer saga of modern football, a story that seemed to repeat itself every summer. Close, then collapsing, then close again, until it finally became reality.
When he eventually signed in 2024, it felt like the final missing piece of Galactico evolution had been added to an already functioning machine.
But instead of completing the puzzle, something unexpected happened. Because for the first time in years, Real Madrid didn't look more stable, they looked more uncertain. The structure that had brought them Champions League success without a traditional superstar dependency began to shift. Tactically, the team started adapting to accommodate Mbappé's role, and while his individual output remained elite, the collective rhythm of the side slowly changed. Movements became less synchronized, attacking patterns more direct, and the balance that had defined Madrid's recent European dominance began to feel slightly disrupted.
And the results reflected it. A team that had lifted the Champions League in 2022, reached the semi-finals in 2023, and won it again in 2024, suddenly failed to even reach the semi-final stage in the following campaign. The drop wasn't just surprising, it felt like unnatural for a club that had made consistency in Europe its identity. At the same time, something equally strange was happening elsewhere in Europe. Paris Saint-Germain, a club that had spent years and billions trying to win the Champions League without ever managing to do so, suddenly achieved what they had always failed to accomplish. After Mbappé's departure, PSG went on to win back-to-back Champions League titles, becoming only the second club in the modern era after Real Madrid to defend the trophy successfully. For a club historically associated with European disappointment, it felt like a complete reversal of identity.
Meanwhile, in Madrid, the situation became more chaotic. Despite Mbappé scoring consistently and maintaining elite individual numbers, the team's stability seemed fragile. The season became defined by inconsistency, shifting tactical ideas, and growing pressure around expectations. Reports of tension within the dressing room, debates over roles in attack, and constant media scrutiny created an atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the calm, almost inevitable dominance of previous seasons. And that is where this what-if becomes truly interesting. Because on one hand, it is easy to say that Mbappé broke something that was already working, a system that didn't necessarily need a Galactico-level focal point to succeed in Europe. On the other hand, it is also possible that this is simply a transition period, the growing pains of integrating one of the most explosive forwards in football history into an already established structure.
After all, he is still scoring goals. He is still one of the most dangerous players in the world. And Real Madrid are still Real Madrid. Which leads to the real question, and one that is still unanswered. Was Mbappé's arrival the disruption of a perfectly balanced Champions League winning machine? Or is it simply the beginning of a new version of Real Madrid that hasn't fully settled yet? Because unlike the other what-ifs in this video, this one is still being written.
And that brings us to the end of today's video. From last-minute Champions League drama to missed timelines that could have changed entire eras, these are the moments that show just how thin the line is between history as we know it and a completely different football world. But now, I want to hear from you. What are your biggest what-ifs in Real Madrid history? Is there a moment you think could have changed everything even more than the ones we covered today? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to Madrid Era for more deep dives into the history, drama, and legacy of Real Madrid. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.